Hello, everybody. I am Jenny Olsen-Payton.
I'm Dia Kappelman.
This is Karen Kappelman.
This week I'm Karen Kappelman. We discussed that in last week's episode.
Yes. So we are going to discuss Dahmer this week, the TV series. And little Miss Karen has some things to say about it.
I need to see a manager because I have some issues. I take some issues with this series. Okay. And I feel like it's maybe the issues I have are not all that popular, but I stand by them. I'm fired up.
Okay. I'm gonna let you, I'm gonna let you go in all your Karen glory. We just lost all our Karen subscribers.
I'm so sorry. We do love Karens.
Yes, we do. We do. So she didn't get her haircut this week. She didn't get
I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, in all fairness, we say this week, but as you can tell, if you subscribe to YouTube and watch us on YouTube, we are wearing the exact same outfits because we decided to get 2 episodes done in one day.
And it's not like normally. So, like, if you watch me, I have, like, comfort with my fibromyalgia. I have, like, comfort outfits. And a lot of times I'll wear the same outfit. Like, I'll wash it and wear it the next day.
Yes.
So, sometimes I just, like, repeat. So, if you guys see me wearing the same thing, I washed them the night before. But
she actually does wash her clothes.
Yeah, I do. In this instance, we did shoot 2 in one day.
We're doing back to back.
Yes.
Which is why we need you to like and subscribe so we can afford
a wardrobe person.
Yeah. Hair, makeup. We need set design. We need everything.
Oh no, we have a pretty epic bookcase.
We do. I'm very proud of our bookcase.
All right, so Dahmer.
We've
seen it.
Yes. Hopefully you've watched episodes 1 through 5. If not, we'll kind of catch you up as we go through the episodes of what happens. Episode 1, I thought was amazing.
Yeah. And can we talk about like how amazing the set was?
Yes.
I mean, like, it is so spot on. It was frightening.
They did a great job. And I feel like it started off so strong. I was totally drawn into it.
Yep.
It starts off with the woman watching the news and hearing that whirring noise in the background.
Yeah, you can actually almost smell that apartment.
Which, if you know about Dahmer, you know what that whirring noise is, which is creepy. But if you don't know about Dahmer, it's just this creepy noise. So I feel like both audiences, which is so weird, by the way, to say if you don't know about Dahmer, because there's a whole generation coming up behind us that doesn't know. So
I fear for that generation.
But I feel like that was a really great job. And I feel like throughout this, whether or not you know his story, they've done a great job of telling it.
Yes.
And I have heard some complaints because they really bounce around throughout his timeline.
But I think they do a really good job of that.
I thought so too.
I think my biggest complaint, and it's not even really, it's a hard one to complain about. I'm a huge Evan Peters fan. I've been a huge fan of his.
Caller. Hashtag Evan Peters.
Evan. I know I'm old enough to be your mom, but I've, American Horror Story. I think he's a incredible actor. I think he's adorable. So it makes it very difficult because I think there is some sexualization of Dahmer that is,
I would agree.
Is kind of worrisome. We do have a generation. We were talking earlier, I did the Slender Man girls last week, and there's some very similar cases in which there are some young women that are very sexualized, and they're like, even though you're a murderer, I could change you. No, honey, you're not going to change them. So I think that's my biggest complaint, but it's not, because he's so phenomenal in this role. And if you watch him and you watch the
I'm letting you talk. Go ahead.
Why do I have a feeling you're gonna like kick me in the butt? I think it's difficult because I think there's so many people that have grown up knowing him from American Horror Stories and
Evan Peters, not Dahmer.
Not Dahmer, but they are sexualizing Dahmer some. So that's definitely problematic.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's my hill, and I will die on it.
That's fine.
Believe me, I have a feeling we're gonna hear some hills.
I've got a few hills.
All right.
So starts with a whirring noise. You don't know exactly what's going on. You know it's creepy. Then you see Dahmer get confronted by his neighbor as he leaves, with her saying what's going on with that smell, which is something you will hear throughout this entire series. And I thought that was actually kind of also well done by the series of every episode. What's that smell? What's that smell? I don't know. I felt like the way they repeated some.
Yeah. I love that when he was with the cops, I think it's episode 5, so it's a little, when he's talking to the police officer in interrogation, and one of them says, you know, did you think that we weren't going to catch you by the smell? We're all kind of hardwired not to...
But the thing is, he did this for several years, and he didn't get caught by the smell, so I don't really feel like that's fair.
I really like pork chops, and my parents sent me some pork chops.
How many variations of that story did he tell?
Apparently.
And the fish, and the dead fish.
Don't get me started about the fish.
You'd be upset that. And I can speak from experience with my 2 dead fish. It is not that hard to clean up fish.
No. Well, I have a problem with the fact that he kept bettas, so I love bettas, and he kept them together to fight them. Bastard. He should.
I knew when he said that in the episode. I like to watch him fight. Like, Jenny's gonna be so mad.
Horrible cannibalistic murderer and fish killer. What is Jenny upset about? I'm telling you, it's like when the dog dies in the movie. The movie is ruined for me.
I love how John Wick played on that. Just a side note, John Wick was like, people get upset about this, we're going to base a whole movie
So
around
I started following Keanu Reeves on TikTok.
I love him on TikTok.
But now I've had like 7 Keanu Reeves wannabes like start following me. And I'm like, oh, did I follow the wrong Keanu Reeves? But I'm like, no, there's only one.
He's hilarious.
He really is.
Anyway, Dahmer.
Okay. Now what
Back
if Keanu Reeves played Dahmer?
I feel like he would not do as good a job as Evan Peters. I feel like Evan Peters really did nail it.
He did nail it.
All right. So Dahmer goes out, picks up a man with the worst pickup line ever. You have a really good jawline. Which just made me cringe on the inside. All these guys and their pickup lines.
What's your tag say? Made in heaven?
Okay. Yeah. But you find out Dahmer has game. Mm-hmm. So even though he has a social anxiety diagnosis and several other diagnoses, he's smart enough to be able to figure out how to get men to come home with him. So this man does, and goes through, in real life it was 5 hours of hell, but is in Dahmer's apartment for 5 hours, eventually escapes, and brings the police back.
Which is incredibly brave.
Incredibly brave. And I'm glad, and we'll get into more of the race issues later, but it was a black man seeking help in a black neighborhood, and the police actually did investigate it did look around, and we see how Dahmer's caught. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to open it up, is we see his last almost victim and how he gets caught. So you would think the ending's almost over, but that's how they started. It was well done.
He was able to hide. He was a very, being a gay man, he was already persecuted. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to hide between the fact that he lived where he lived with a race and his
homosexuality.
Yes, but his cannibalistic tendencies he was able to hide because those were 2 situations in which the police were not quick to respond.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. He had, obviously his homosexuality is something that he dealt with his entire life, but he used it very well.
Yeah.
To his aid. I did have one thing though. Throughout the episode, he kept drinking Budweiser. And obviously they're going to get Budweiser's okay, but I was like, was there anybody at Budweiser that was like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and he kept calling, didn't he keep calling it, Pabst Blue Ribbon? They kept talking about that.
No, he ordered PBRs for, at the bar
there was
when he was trying to
of
pick
that
up
too.
Men. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I got to be honest. If I was, it's probably good advertising, but I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody but Dahmer can drink Budweiser.
Yes. Yeah. So that was episode 1.
Yeah.
So far, no Karen. I'm fine.
We're
I
good.
think it's great.
So far, so good.
Mm-hmm. Episode 2
I don't know. I got a little Karen when we talked about the fish.
You did.
I need to see.
Oh, see, now you're calling me Karen. Turns out.
I'm telling you.
It's Karen Olsen Payton over here. This is Dia Kappelman live with Karen Olsen Payton. We're here to talk about 2 betta fish that were put in a tank together. So then we get to episode 2.
That's really why he got killed.
It was you?
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, it was...
I can't infiltrate a male prison very well.
I think if you ever were that motivated, I feel like you probably, there's not much that I put past you.
Well, thank you.
When I talk about you,
think.
Okay, I realize how that sounds, saying I think you could infiltrate a male prison. I don't mean it. I mean in determination. In sheer willpower and determination, there is not much that I would put
the
past
gentleman found out that he was, killing betta fish, and I'm telling you.
It would have been enough for you.
It would have been.
All right, so then episode 2.
Okay.
Actually struck me as a little bit funny.
Okay.
Because I saw the warning go across the top when it says TVMA. There's substance abuse, there's violence, there's sexual violence, there's nudity, there's gore, and it ends with smoking.
Yes. Well,
not that smoking is good.
No. But if that's the only thing you're concerned about, if that's the only trigger warning you need.
After everything else, and I was sitting there and I got a little bit distracted at first because I'm thinking, after substance use, violence, nudity, sexual violence.
Isn't that kind of like me saying, I was really pissed about the fish.
Yes. As we talk about
cannibalistic murderer, betta fish abuser. Bastard.
It's very similar. Sorry. Anyway, that's it. That's not all I got out of episode 2, but that's how it started.
So we have to sidebar quickly.
Okay.
So I don't often comment or get triggered on TikTok. I just don't. I don't get triggered often. This little skank decided that she was going to let her betta fish out in a river. So she goes out and she's like, be free, and totally knew that it was a death sentence. I went off like nobody's business. It was not a pretty thing. So yes.
Wow, we almost have that discussion though in this episode.
About a skank letting.
So Dahmer was on TikTok. He was equally as upset about the betta fish. No, because they do. Okay, so back up. So
okay.
Yes. So starting the episode, we do learn about his mother's suicide attempt.
Yes.
We learn about her mental health issues.
Yes.
We learn about his parents' constant fighting, and about where his.
Let's see where this is going with the fish. I trust you.
We'll get there. We gotta scroll our way back through.
Gotcha.
To get to the fish. So they start covering that.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit where it starts losing me some, because I think it's interesting to know his backstory.
Right.
I think it's interesting from a, hey, how did this happen? How could it have been prevented? How could we prevent it in the future?
Right.
I feel like it goes on for a little while. But then it does kind of segue into where it's believed that this started with Dahmer, because his dad finds a possum under the house. That whole what that smell comes back into play. They find the possum under the house, the dead one, and because Dahmer is interested in learning more about it, his dad jumps on that. It's like, you know what, let's make this a hobby.
I did almost feel bad for the dad at that point, because he was so desperate to relate to his son. And
but you can find 8 million other ways to relate to your son, as opposed to thinking, well, roadkill works.
Okay, but so you're telling me that if I know if my kid came to me and said, I have a huge penchant for true crime, I'd be like, all right, let me start you with our podcast.
But couldn't his dad started with soccer first, or t-ball, or puzzles? Could we have done some crosswords?
No, because then we'd end up with Jigsaw. Dahmer would be like Jigsaw.
But I mean,
it was inappropriate. There was, and that I think is the, and so, and I definitely see where you're coming from. I have to disagree, because in the fact that I don't feel sorry for him at all for his upbringing. I really, they painted it. I mean, it was awful, but there's a lot of people that have much, 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 much worse upbringings that don't go on killing sprees.
And don't.
His dad was incredibly awkward. His mom was a little mentally ill. It doesn't create. I think they could have gone a lot more sympathetic if they wanted to paint sympathy.
They could have, but they also, I feel like, really, this goes on for several episodes.
It does.
I mean, you can portray a disturbed childhood without the constant. I felt like it was constant. So then they skip to where he gets kicked out of the Army.
Yep.
They kind of jump ahead. So when we're jumping around his timeline, he ends up getting kicked out of the Army. And he didn't function on his own very well after that. He was in Miami. So he came back to tried to live with his dad. His dad took him up to his grandmother's house, who was a very old school church lady.
She was very sweet. I felt really bad for the grandma sometimes.
I did too, and I understood where she was coming from as far as, well, you should go to church, you should meet a nice woman. But when Dahmer's already in his adolescence past his adolescence, dealing with being a homosexual male who doesn't fit in and has serious abandonment issues,
right?
I could see how that would alienate him even further. Again, not excusing it.
Right. Well, and see, I took a lot of that early painting the picture of the fact that it almost created Dahmer the way his dad constantly swept it under the rug. His mom's suicide attempts. All of that was just, she saw little green men, and, she went chasing UFOs, and everything was just, she attacked him with a knife one night. But I think it just kind of painted the picture of why he became just as the way things are. I just, so that's kind of how I read it in.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So then, in order to deal with being lonely, feeling outcasted, ostracized to an extent, he steals a mannequin.
Yeah, that's probably where I'd seek therapy.
As they should have. But then...
We're talking late 80s, early 90s. Mental health was not a...
No, and this would have been fairly early 80s.
Yeah.
I did think it was a little bit funny. Can you imagine working in that menswear shop and then next
Where the hell did that mannequin go?
Where's the cash register? Oh, it's there. Money? No, it's there. All the finery, all the...
Philip, that mannequin that we named, he's gone.
Did they take anything else?
No.
Just a mannequin.
No. Just a mannequin.
But that actually did happen. That was... real life, and that's where he started his whole kind of this mindset that he had of, he wanted a man, but he wanted him to be still and never leave, never move, never make any decisions, just be there.
Yep.
So.
Well, and I thought that was so interesting, and I didn't ever, the controlling aspect of things, and because he's not, he would never strike me as being in controlling like that. I don't know what it's just so much. He was just trying to get them not to leave,
because he comes across as so passive.
Yeah, he does come across as very passive,
but it was that whole aspect of nothing in his life was in his control.
Yeah, so
he was trying to take control in that way.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yes, from my armchair psychology degree.
You have an armchair one. I have a Cracker Jack one. It comes with a whistle ring.
I'm so jealous. I didn't get anything at graduation. So then this one was hard. This episode was hard because we learned about, to me, his most heartbreaking victim was 14-year-old, and I want to make sure I say this, cochlearic synthasophone? I can't say it. Synthasophone. Anyway, he was a 14-year-old that Dahmer picked up.
Yeah, this one pissed me off.
This one was rough. And this is where we open up more of that race issue. So Dahmer picked him up, brought him home, and that's all we know about him so far. And drugged him, and then Dahmer drilled into his skull, poured hydrochloric acid inside in an attempt to make this poor 14-year-old boy his own personal zombie. Satisfied that he had done a good job with that, Dahmer then leaves to go get more alcohol. Budweiser probably. Sorry, bud. Comes back.
That's Blue Ribbon.
I think he also has some old Milwaukee then.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Budweiser was like, okay, you can use us, but just not us. Make sure there's other... If we're going down, they're all going down.
Just in the first episode.
Yes. So Dahmer comes back from the liquor store, and this poor boy, and in real life, is naked on the side of the road, and these women are around him and have called the police saying something is wrong, this is a child, and something is wrong.
We saw him playing. That was one of the, we saw him. He
playing with worms.
Yes,
collecting worms. And so Dahmer is in a low-income area with people of color and immigrants and people who don't speak English well. And as a white man, he tells the police officers, "Oh, it's just my boyfriend."
Yep. I have pictures and everything.
Mm-hmm. He's 19 years old. And the police, dealing with this white man or any people of color, and you're talking, again, in the 80s. This was late 80s, but you're talking the AIDS epidemic. There's still a lot we didn't understand about that. There was all this stigma around homosexuality. So the police were basically like, ooh, nope, don't
We're
touch.
not touching that with a 10-foot pole. We're going to go, and they actually said, and I don't know if this part is true to life. I mean, it could be just, for the cinema, but we're going to go home and take a shower, if you know what I mean. And, I mean, they expected him to agree with them, like, oh, yeah, I understand. I mean, it's like, for the love of God.
But that's what they felt, and that's why Dahmer was there, and that's why Dahmer was able to play on it, and did play on it. So when these women are saying this is, which they did in real life, this is a child, Dahmer's going, no, he's not. He's my gay boyfriend. And that was enough for
I have pictures.
These alpha men to go, ooh, no, we don't want anything to do with that. Yeah. And so they actually did return this 14-year-old boy to Dahmer's apartment, and Dahmer did try the hydrochloric acid again. This time it killed him. So he never got his zombie. He died. And that was, it could have been stopped then. And I think that there were 3 more victims after that. It could have been stopped, and that 14-year-old boy didn't have to die.
Yeah.
So they jumped to that, to tadpoles. So now we're back to the tadpoles, where he collects tadpoles for his teacher.
That was heartbreaking for me.
To give to his teacher. I was devastated. His teacher gave the tadpoles away, and I was like, oh, no, not a good.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Dahmer breaks into this kid's house to steal his tadpoles back, goes out to the stream, and you're thinking he's going to release them back into the wild. Instead, he pours motor oil in and kills them just to watch them die. And that's when you start...
The boy's off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing how that was.
Yeah.
And then that's basically kind of how the episode ends. It does end with a phone call of one of the women calling the police back saying, whatever happened to that boy? There was this little boy, and the police officer being like, oh, their sexuality is, that's, we don't have anything to do with that. And the woman saying, no, I'm not asking you about that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that was a child.
Yeah.
No. They were boyfriends. It was gay stuff. They were boyfriends. And she's saying, but it was a child.
Yeah.
Did you check on a child? And I feel like that really set the stage very well for how Dahmer, you learn how he was able to get away with it. They did start losing me a little bit, though, because they really just went into his backstory, and I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So then we get into episode 3. I started naming the episodes with my own title. Episode 3 is called Awkward.
Yes. Yeah.
It starts off well enough, and again, kind of sets the stage for his parents, because it's them at the doctor's office while she's pregnant with Dahmer saying,
oh my God, and the medicines she was on.
Yeah, what's wrong with me? Saying, I know something is wrong, what's wrong with me? And that whole mentality of,
oh,
well,
honey.
you're moody.
Yeah.
You're pregnant, you're moody.
It's normal for women's hormones to fluctuate.
I don't think he even talked about hormones, but when they even just said the moodiness, I got an attitude. I'm like, yeah, women are fucking moody when they're pregnant. The amount of hormones that are racing through our bodies, the amount of, not even just the amount, the hormones that are there, like you're happy, you're sad, you're happy, you're sad. You have zero control over that. Plus, you're trying to grow a life that's sucking the life out of you.
I'm just going to say here that I'm really glad my boys were adopted.
I love my child, but pregnancy is not easy.
Yeah.
Some women have it great. It's not always easy, and I feel like that whole mindset of being like, oh, you're just moody. No. Mm-hmm. Pregnancy destroys your body. And just take a little more medicine. But then they prescribe her medicine. Yeah. She has reactions to the medicine, and then they get mad that she's wanting to take the medicine she has reactions to, and then has those reactions to them.
Yep. I do think it was an interesting dichotomy between the fact that I would safely say, again, I'm not a doctor. Please do not trust my medical opinion. I would safely say that it probably had a lot to do with all the medicines she was on when she was pregnant.
I would agree.
Okay. But what's interesting is that the dad constantly was looking for something to excuse it. Oh, he's just not ever been right since he had that. What was it? Yes. Appendectomy? Did he have an appendectomy?
No, it was. Oh, I forget what it was. Gallbladder.
Gallbladder. Yeah, he's just never been right. So I think some of those medicines messed him up. And
well, as we see with his dad constantly shifts.
Yeah.
He shifts it somewhere else to someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, the medicine definitely could have been, because she was on heavy stuff, serious stuff while she was pregnant.
Right.
And not being helped in any sort of way will not help your mental state. Yeah. Sitting there being told, oh, honey,
yeah,
it'll be over soon. It'll be
well,
fine.
then not to mention not only done by that, but then by her husband as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, her husband, one of my favorite memes is, and I was telling you about it, you have not seen Step Brothers, or you saw it once, but it's the dad from Step Brothers, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and the meme is, who is allowing this man to keep having children?
You talk about as the actors, two different completely different roles, but he did good.
He did, but he has that same kind of, I mean, and I did almost feel sympathy's not the right word.
I know you're not going to use sympathy. No,
sympathy's not the right word. I felt the pain of this family, obviously a very miserable marriage, a man and a woman who both were trying to act in the roles that they were. Correct. He was trying to be a husband. She was trying to be a wife.
In the way that you should in the 50s.
Yes. And he awkwardly could not relate to his child. Mm-hmm. And so there was just a lot of... the episode being named Awkward is perfect.
I know.
Because it just is...
but it gets worse. It gets way worse.
Yeah.
Because we see that it flips forward to when Dahmer is 17 and his mom leaves with his brother. And that abandonment comes back into play.
Yeah.
And then we get to the real awkward, where he and his dad talk about the birds and the bees while they're fishing. And that was uncomfortable.
Dad, I know.
But that's the thing. His dad's trying to have a conversation as far as, are there women? Or, girls, I'm sure you have this conversation. And Dahmer can't even have that conversation with his dad to say, I'm not interested in that.
And they said that he was interested in boys very early in life.
Yes. Yeah.
He knew he was gay from 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was soon.
But
he couldn't voice that.
No, especially not in the time frame.
No.
To a dad that seemed to be stuck in the 50s.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of go back to, it kind of is like the Slenderman girls that we talk about, in the fact that you don't expect... I felt sad for the situation until he killed his first victim. Does that make sense? Because it doesn't, it's a god-awful situation. You could have gone one or two ways. And so that, my sympathy obviously ends when he becomes a serial killer. Mm-hmm. But it was just, the whole thing is just incredibly awkward, and he doesn't know how to tell his dad. His dad never expected him to become who he became. I mean, even when he was...
But even putting your head in the sand...
Oh, no, I'm not... Yeah, that's a problem. But you don't, as a parent, you don't expect your kid to become something like that.
I'm sorry, I am not. No, I think because in the time frame that we were talking about on this, when he's talking about the birds and the bees, I think
It should have happened much earlier.
Yeah, I think Dahmer at that point was about around 18 years old. So
It was, let's talk about the bird and the bees, and then I'm sending you off to the army.
Well, no, but we'll talk about that in the later episode. But it should have happened way before.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to discuss with your child something that doesn't even apply to them, and then we get to, if you thought that was bad.
Yeah.
The next scene is Dahmer getting turned on by fish intestines.
Yeah.
And then if you think that's bad,
that was a rough one.
The next scene is him not enjoying essentially a Playboy magazine. He starts thinking about the fish.
Yeah.
And
was that the episode when he saw the therapist and the therapist's like, okay.
No, you learn about that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was one of I was like sitting here going, we as men are attracted to shiny things. Alrighty then.
I'm attracted to shiny things, and I still have never looked at a fish and thought, that's fine. So that's why I was like, oh, this episode is awkward.
Yeah, it is awkward.
But you kind of learn a little bit more. Again, Dad putting his head in the sand.
Yeah.
You see where he gets that interest in wet, shiny objects. And then you see him, he becomes so basically frustrated with everything. That's where he starts to work out.
Yep.
Which we talked about. You don't realize how strong he really was.
Right.
So then I was thinking about, as an actor, when you're talking to other actors and they're like, oh, I'm bulking up for Spider-Man, I'm bulking up for Batman, I'm going to be Superman.
Bulking up for Dahmer. Well, I thought it was interesting, and I would be interested to know if he actually did it in real life. But when he was walking through the campus and he just literally stopped, it was almost like, and started doing push-ups.
He probably did.
Yeah, I could see him doing that.
Like,
but it was almost like a frustration relief.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was almost like he couldn't control himself, so therefore he was working out.
I think that's probably what it was, because there was no other escape for him other than that. He didn't have friends. He didn't have a hobby other than roadkill. And that shows him dissecting a pig in school,
and the teacher,
in high school.
The teacher let him take the pig home.
But you don't expect him to be taking it home to get off on it. And this is back in the, so what is this going to be, in the 60s or 70s?
I don't know.
This is going to be in the 70s.
I would think
it was a
teacher,
different time.
I know, but I think a teacher would be enough removed that they'd be like, whereas a parent who's right there, I mean, it just...
No, I don't think so. As a teacher, you're probably like, oh, it's one less pig I have to deal with, so... And then we see Dahmer keep watching this jogger. He sees this jogger every day, which again happened in real life.
Yeah.
In the series, we see Dahmer, which I thought this veered way off course. Dahmer approaches him with a baseball bat. The runner is like, oh yeah, I'll come home with you. I was like, nobody would do that. It was just a fantasy. The jogger runs away, which they show leads to more frustration, but in real life, Dahmer did do that, but the jogger didn't come by that day.
Yeah.
So nothing ever happened. But instead, he picks up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks, and that is his first kill.
Yeah.
Stephen wanted to leave. Dahmer didn't want him to. We start that whole abandonment kill. And he gets stopped by the police trying to dispose of Stephen Hicks' body. And we're in round 1 of when Dahmer should have been stopped.
Yes. How many times should Dahmer have been stopped?
We're in double digits now. But the police see him and say, he's only 18 years old. You're 18 years old. I see you've been drinking and driving, but I don't want to mess up the rest of your life. We'll let you go. Well, Dahmer had Stephen Hicks' mutilated body in the back and like mess up his life. Stop him right there.
Yeah. But then you have to think about, I mean, like, again, you would just not expect, small town, little situation.
You don't expect that.
You don't expect that.
No.
I mean, he had a good story.
So that was episode 3. Awkward all around. That's really when I started being like,
Yeah.
Episode 4, entitled I don't care. Because I don't.
There's some of these, you know, like we were talking about the staircase earlier today. They probably could have cut some stuff out.
I believe they could have.
Yeah. The staircase definitely could have had some stuff.
The staircase was... But the staircase was, I feel like that was more for, the staircase just kind of got old and repetitive.
Yeah.
Cinematically, this is great.
Yeah.
It did a wonderful job, but we keep coming back to, well, we got to give him his backstory. And that's why I don't care.
Yeah.
He did what he did, yes, somewhat based off his childhood, but also just 17 people died at his hands. So I don't care.
Yeah.
So, episode I Don't Care starts off.
I don't care.
The police find the hitchhiker's bones, Stephen Hicks, in the back of Dahmer's yard. And then it really gets into how much the father was hiding his head into the sand as far as Dahmer's trying to talk to his father about, if you just knew these thoughts I have, if you just knew what was going on. Now they know, at 18 years old, Dahmer's trying to do this. And they know he has a drinking problem.
Right.
At this point, he is already a raging alcoholic. His father says, you know what you need? College. College is going to help that.
That was a real awkward scene. Well, and I wanted to really like the stepmom, I think, could have been a redeeming character in all of this, because she was kind of a tough cookie. And she was, you know, I did like I love your father, therefore I love you.
There were good aspects to her, but then also, well, I'm going to give you tough love. No, you need to step out of it.
Yeah.
When your stepson that you just met is saying, even sexually, he did say, I'm struggling sexually.
Yeah.
And if you knew all the stuff that's going on, and you know he's an alcoholic, sexual issues and alcoholism are not solved by college.
They're never good friends.
In college. For an 18-year-old boy. So that went about as well as anyone would expect, except Dahmer's father, who thought it was going to be masterful success.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get you in. I'm going to get you in college.
And I'm going to pay for it. You have zero responsibilities at all. So surprisingly, Dahmer got kicked out of college. So his father decided...
GPA was like a 0.45.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the dad even we're going to get those grades up. And he's like, dude.
But even more that, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah. And then when he gets kicked out of college, the dad gets mad and decides if college didn't work,
we're going to send you to the army.
They'll take care of everything.
Oh my gosh.
But it was a success.
And by the way, we're going to enroll you in a class that teaches about drugging people.
That was Dahmer's choice. He got into the medical part. And that's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. It was a success from his standpoint because he learned about different drugs, how to drug people, and practiced on his army buddies.
Uh-huh.
Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever came from that at that point. Right. But he was honing his skill, so to speak. He got kicked out of the army. It shows him losing his mannequin.
And he was honorably discharged, which I thought was interesting.
Because of his drinking, they decided that what he was dealing with wasn't something that would probably carry over to civilian life and have an issue there.
Yeah.
So, yes, he was honorably discharged because he technically didn't do something horrible.
Well, that
I knew of.
And the grandma, I felt bad for the grandma.
Well, she finds the mannequin.
I know.
And then they have this big fight, which happened in real life. They have this big fight. She gets rid of his mannequin. He is devastated by it. Again, I understand the psychology behind it, but I don't care. I don't care. You don't kill people because you lost your toy.
Oh, I agree.
And then he goes to the state fair. More of his family maybe not understanding because his grandma's like, you know what you should do? You should get out.
There's a beer garden.
Go to the beer garden at the state fair. And
I know you have a drinking problem, but
go to the beer garden. And so he goes to the beer garden, gets drunk, and depending on what source, all of that, and they do show him as masturbating to the games, which, I mean, you see the flashing lights. It's very exciting.
Shiny.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Dia, I learned way too. Mental note, don't go to the fair with Dia.
I think I'd be a heck of a lot of fun. But there's also, it's been presented that he's saying that he was urinating. They're saying he just exposed himself. So it is kind of up in the air what actually happened. But, for cinematic stuff.
His penis was out.
Yes, it was flapping in the wind. I honestly, the whole thing, again, they're trying to give him this backstory. The most exciting part for me
was the fair.
No. We're really like fairs. No. When Tic-Tac-Toe came on the TV, do you remember Tic-Tac-Toe?
Yes.
I got so excited. I was like, finally, we get to an exciting part of this. And that's when
Finally, a backstory I care about.
That's when I really started to question myself and my mental state. If I'm watching this mini-series on Dahmer the Cannibal, and I'm like, ooh, Tic-Tac-Toe. If you don't know it, you should watch it. It's way fun.
Yeah.
He gets, because of the issue at the fair, he loses his job at a butcher, which already sounds way creepy. But don't worry, his job gets creepier at a blood bank. And this is where he experiments with blood, and if he likes the taste and if he wants to do that. He doesn't. So
that's like they really should have played Wild Horses in the background, like Sans.
Well, wait, I love Wild Horses.
You love that song?
I do.
Have you seen Silence of the Lambs?
No, I will not see Silence of the Lambs. Would it ruin Wild Horses for me? Right now, everybody's laughing. I'm still an innocent mind. Alicia Keys.
Didn't.
I'm never watching it. I love that song.
Okay.
Oh no. Okay, now somebody's like, "You want to watch Silence of the Lambs?" I'll be like, "No, I love Wild Horses. Don't do it. I want to hear Alicia Keys sing. It's my happy spot."
Alicia Keys.
Yeah, she remakes that song.
She remakes the song. Okay. This was not the Alicia Keys version. My favorite version is the Clerks 2 version, and if you know, you know.
I'm missing so much. I need to watch movies.
You do. I'm gonna give you homework.
I'm out. I'm out in the woods running, not getting stabbed by the Slender Man.
And you're apparently too busy at fairs. And watching old primetime
Tic-Tac-Toe. Wheel of Fortune. I mean,
I'm telling you, it works.
I would have been mad friends with that grandma. Because she even says something about, "You're not eating your Swanson brownie. That's the best part." I could taste it in my mouth when she said that.
Oh, I'm still stuck at. Will it ruin Wild Horses for me?
I don't want to know. I don't tell me. Don't. That song, love it.
Want some lotion?
Oh dear.
It puts the lotion on the skin.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay,
I do know that. So, back around. Dahmer picks up his second kill. Stephen Toomey. Are you done?
Keep going.
Dahmer picks up his second kill, Stephen Toomey, in a bar.
Okay.
Takes him to a hotel, and he can't take him to brothels or, not brothels, bathhouses. He used to frequent the gay bathhouses, but because he was basically roofing the men he took, now he wasn't killing them, he was just roofing them.
They did almost die.
They did almost die. He got a bad reputation.
Well, and that was amazing that he went back. He kept going back thinking it would be okay. He'd leave these men.
Well, it worked so many times. It was okay. And then they were like, you know what, maybe don't come in here anymore. And he had to come up with another plan. So his second plan was a hotel. And then, okay. So he kills Stephen Toomey in a very horrific way
that he doesn't remember.
And even he still admitted he doesn't remember what happened. I tend to believe that because he was so matter of fact about everything else.
Yeah.
That was probably true because he drugged himself, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So he takes him to this nice hotel, kills Stephen Toomey, and trying to get him out, he has to go get a suitcase to take the body out of the hotel. And I was like, I hope it was an expensive night for you. You had to buy a big suitcase to fit that body.
Because you know there weren't like good thrift stores with big suitcases.
No, so he had to go spend a lot of money, and that made me really happy.
But he lived with his grandma, so he probably had quite a bit of money.
He probably did. So that was the end of episode 4.
Okay.
You're gonna love my notes on episode 5, entitled Napoleon Dynamite.
Tina, you fat lard.
I couldn't not see Napoleon Dynamite because this is where he really starts having an attitude with his grandma, and his grandma was like, "You need to come to church with me." "I don't want to, Grandma. Eat your tots." That's what it just came across to me. He just had this attitude to him.
He was on the hand.
Okay, Napoleon Dynamite's got some moves, I
He
gotta
does.
say.
I love myself some Napoleon Dynamite.
But that's kind of what it came across. He has this attitude to him. And so we learn, and this is true life, that Dahmer tried to dig up a dead body.
Yes.
In order to lay with it, but the ground was too cold, so he couldn't. But he even went to the funeral for him.
Milwaukee winners.
And Dahmer says, I don't know if I would do anything. I would have done anything after that if that had worked. Which kind of led me to the thinking, okay, so does that mean that he thinks he would have stuck with just dead bodies? Or that would have pacified whatever was inside of him? And I don't think it would have worked.
Right.
I think it would have worked for a time, but we would end up in the same issue. Yeah. We get more insight into how his killing evolved, because first there are the bathhouses that he started drugging them.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the hotel that probably got a little expensive, what with the cost of the room, suitcases. And so then he just starts bringing him home to his grandma's house.
Poor grandma.
Poor grandma. Grandma said that she did know something was going on, and that's when she started to question his sexuality.
But it was definitely more of a sexuality issue. She was questioning his sexuality, not that he was a
serial killer. But you don't, I guess this back to that whole, you don't expect that. But he would drug them, then take them down.
The fruit seller.
The fruit seller.
Yeah. I mean, like, he has game, and yet he's like, you want to come down to my fruit
go-to
cellar?
move is, you want to see my fruit cellar?
I'm going to make you go to the fruit cellar and watch Silence of the Lambs.
That sounds awful.
Do-do. 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 Do-do.
You look so proud of yourself.
I am so proud of
just want to
myself.
say, if you guys are watching on YouTube, she is. But I gotta be honest, though, because I'm old, we've already discussed that, Swanson dinners and tic-tac-toe. If somebody was like, do you want to see my fruit cellar? I'd be like, do you have jams down there? Did you start your canning
I love myself
for this
a good
year?
jam.
I do love a good jam. I like jams better than jellies because the jams have the seeds in them.
So white vans with puppies.
State fairs.
State fairs.
And fruit cellars with jams.
With jams. And tic-tac-toe. Apparently.
I'd be easy to kidnap.
Exactly. I'm thinking I'm going to put tic-tac-toe on and tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah. And then like in the middle I'll put Silence of the Lambs.
Rude.
Yes, I know.
I will notice the difference.
I have no doubt.
What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, I guess if you got me my Swanson dinner, then I'd be like, I'm here.
And some jam.
I've got my TV tray.
And a puppy.
I probably won't move for a puppy.
Yeah.
I do love. Anyway.
Yes.
We're getting off. So.
Off subject.
So, he starts bringing them to his grandma's house. Drugs them, takes them down into the fruit cellar, debatable whether or not they were jams, kills them down there. We do learn that he is in it for the control aspect afterwards.
Right.
He's not in it for the kill. He strangles them while they're drugged because he doesn't want them to suffer.
Yeah.
So he's not a sadist in that sort of way. He wants someone there who does not move and does not leave.
Yeah,
so that's a little bit insight.
He wants a friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
Yeah. No, and I think this is where I get into trouble, because I know a lot of people think he's probably the cruelest, most evil serial killer there ever lived. And I would have to argue that I do not think that is the case.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually one case that I was looking, when I was trying to decide what case I was going to do last week, that I don't think I'll ever touch. And that's Mr. Cruel.
I don't know that.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Okay, then
so you don't want to know it. But there are people that are much crueler. I just think it's unfortunate.
Well, because there are serial killers who kill to kill.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing that.
No.
He did later on in his kills, when he was using boiling water and hydrochloric acid in their heads. That is cruel. However, it wasn't for the torture aspect of it. It was to make these zombies.
Right.
But the episode just shows how, like we talked about, his grandmother started knowing something funky was going on, but she was so focused on the sexuality aspect of it that it never got any further with that. And his own father, his own family were digging their head into the sand in the same way, and it just keeps kind of reiterating that.
The worst thing that he could be in their eyes was gay.
Exactly.
And that was, I think that is it's like, it doesn't even hit their radar that he could be,
it could be more than this.
Yeah.
Something wrong, something more than gay is wrong, is basically what they were so focused on. And again, that's great for the groundwork, but yes, we've got it. To me, it was hit home so much that it almost became to the point of, are you trying to get my sympathy? And it seems like social media wise, it worked.
Yeah.
A lot of social media does seem to be, and even people that I've talked to have that sympathy for him, and I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
He killed 17 people. I don't care what his upbringing was. I don't care if he had an awful upbringing. He still killed 17 people, and why are we not focused on that? And we did all this backstory on him. There are 17 victims out there, which is what you and I have kind of talked about on this podcast, giving the victims a voice.
And how many could people name?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How many can you name? How many backstories do we have of them? What were they? What could they have become if he hadn't been there? Why aren't we focusing more on that? So that's another hill that I have with this series.
Yeah.
And then episode 5 ends with Somsak, and now we're back to this name, Synthansomophone, who was a boy who escaped Dahmer, and then this is where Dahmer got his child molestation charge from.
And this was the
younger brother of the earlier case with the hydrochloric acid.
Gotcha.
So,
and the kid went with him and knew who he was.
Yes, but Dahmer would always offer money, and that was kind of the incentive, especially in a low-income area.
All I want is some pictures.
I just want some pictures. I will give you money if you just take a few pictures. And that's why that's how they think, because they don't actually know.
Right.
But that's how they think it happened, because his family needed the money.
Yeah.
And so he went with them for the money.
That's unfortunate.
And that's...
So I do want to point out a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. One of the things that I did not realize at the time were the contacts.
Oh.
Yeah.
The contacts that he wore.
The contacts that he wore. So he wore eye contacts, and it was to emulate his two favorite characters that he related to. And that was surprisingly, it's been a while since I've seen The Exorcist 3. I don't do possession real well. I'm not a big fan of possession. So
I'm actually kind of surprised about that. But
I am
you
too.
have boundaries when it comes
I do have some boundaries. And Exorcist 3 is one of them. But so whatever the possessed individual was in Exorcist 3, he would actually, to ramp himself up, he would watch that in order to kind of get into the mood to kill his victims. And the other one was the, oh, this is going to be bad. I'm so sorry to my brother and my dad.
Wasn't it?
No, it was not Darth Vader. It was the Emperor. The Emperor. Okay, we got it right.
Yeah.
Yes, the yellow eyes of the Emperor. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
We just lost our entire Star Wars base right
Yeah,
there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, I called the Emperor Darth Vader.
Well, and you've still not seen Silence of the Lambs.
I'm never gonna see it. No, enough.
I'm gonna personally ruin Wild Horses for you.
No, you're not.
You gotta do that.
You can't.
You gotta do the lipstick.
You can't. There are 2 different versions that I know of.
Yeah. So there was that. The other thing I thought was really interesting was when he was, 2 more things. One, when he was with a therapist, and the therapist was trying to basically say what he was dealing with was normal in a way, because it was shiny, because men are programmed to like shiny objects. And the visceral mess that was from taxidermy and things like that were just, it was natural that he would like the shiny objects.
Because comparing a wet woman to
That's what-
fish
yeah.
guts is what I got out of
When
that.
you get the swimsuit edition and you open it up, the models are wet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting, and it was a weird paradox when the investigators were interviewing him. I think it was chapter 5. It was episode 5.
Napoleon
Dynamite. When he was being interviewed, they said, "You didn't even know their names," and he didn't know their names. And he's like, they were talking about the Stevens, and he goes, 2 Stevens. What are the chances of that? Mm-hmm. And the cop almost came out of his chair.
Well, I think it was interesting, and I don't know if they did this on purpose, but I think it was interesting that the African-American cop was the one that had the issue with it, because he saw what was happening. And I don't know, but they went into such detail on this series that I wouldn't be surprised. They even just like little subtle touches, like the missing posters in the very first episode. But that little subtle touch of the African-American police officer, detective, has the issue that he doesn't know the names, and the white police officer was like, okay, he doesn't know the names.
2 Stevens, what are the chances of that? I mean, and then it was the dichotomy of that. I mean, that's kind of where I realized with Dahmer, it wasn't, I saw that, I'm like, some people would say that, and it would be, you would want to come out of the chair. Mm-hmm. But I saw it more as the fact that it wasn't the cruelty aspect of things. It was, these were truly just, he didn't look at them as people. And that doesn't make things right. Okay, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the case. It wasn't.
They were objects.
They were
and
objects.
And that's honestly what he was looking for. He literally was looking for an object.
Yeah. So if his grandmother had not thrown away his mannequin, it might have been taken care of.
Might have been. And that's what we've taken away from episodes 1 through 5.
We've taken a lot away, but
I like State Fairs.
Yes.
I'm never going to watch Silence of the Lambs.
I really like Silence of the Lambs.
And the mother shouldn't have taken away the mannequin. We wouldn't be sitting here.
Gosh, Grandma!
Oh, fat lord. Our Napoleon Dynamites are on point.
It's almost as good as my Buffalo Bill.
Oh, jeez. On that note, we will see you next week for
Make
episodes.
sure to subscribe.
Make sure to subscribe. We'll be back next week for episodes 6 through 10. Make sure you watch those if you haven't already, so you can keep track with us.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll have some more interesting insight.
I'm going to be fired up again. I know it.
I know.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm trying to do it as we film.
Yep. Well, it's okay. I don't care. And you can be all the fired up you want.
I am. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one.